Hello YouTube, it is your host Sage Samurai here, and welcome to the channel. Today I'm here to present to you part 10 to What If Deku with Shisui's Reincarnation. I apologize for the long-awaited part, but here it is. Hopefully you guys do enjoy, as I also want to announce that a new What If movie will soon be coming out. I don't exactly know when, but I'm in the process of making it. And don't worry, many others will follow soon, just give me some more time. And with that, hopefully you guys enjoy yourselves, make yourself comfortable. Please ignore any background noise or stuttering that may interrupt the story, as trust me, it will make the story way better, and also I would really appreciate it. If you guys understand all that, thank you very much, and either way, let's get started.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright guys, let's begin with this what if. Hopefully you guys do enjoy, and either way, let's begin. Now to kick off this one, we're gonna start off with a time skip of 3 months. During this time, crime rates have gone down by a lot. And all the while, the Class 1A students have been enjoying their time as they have fully gone on and continue living their lives as they take care of any possible threats. Now you see, due to this brief period, and since Deku has been taking care of a lot of the main threats at such a young age and such early on in the story, Class 1A has actually time to enjoy their school lives. This allowing them to, get more used to the hero work and not getting rushed into it, and them also enjoying their time in UA in general. And all the while, during this time, a few loose ends begin to, cover up actually. As number one, the one about Eri, like losing her smile and everything, that ends up passing really quickly, since thanks to the help of the UA students, she was able to actually smile once again. Another thing is any other filler or events that really are not that impactful to Deku's story, all that ends up passing by relatively easily, since it doesn't really have any lasting effect on Deku. No, but right now, what was really lasting an effect on Deku was the fact that the crime rates had gone down by a lot. And I mean a lot. And sure, the Class 1A students now had their hero license and are able to be heroes and everything. Something just feels off. I mean, sure, UA students were powerful and everything, but for the crime rates to go down this drastically made no sense. Now, along with working with Deku would be Edshot, as he and Deku had kind of teamed up. Mostly due to the fact that out of everyone, and I'm being brutally honest here, out of everyone that Deku has met so far Edshot is the one he closest resembles Deku's, closest friends. He considers most people in Class 1A his friends, better yet his younger siblings, but Edshot was the one who at least had some resemblance of his old life, at least. Now, during this time, Deku and Edshot had been working together, as they've been trying to find out why exactly the crime rates have been going down, as well as any other appearance of the League of Villains, which, surprisingly, they had not been making their move. Now, as they were searching for a while, one time Deku and Edshot actually found a loose end. They decided to pursue it as they go down and chase after a certain individual who currently right now is running off. Now, eventually Deku ends up catching up to the guy and, knocking him out in old-fashioned Uchiha style, as eventually when the guy wakes up, he sees both of the two most terrifying individuals standing right in front of him. Wait, don't hurt me, he would say in a very pleading tone. To which this is where Deku begins to interrogate him. The man didn't say anything, to which Deku just rolled his eyes and instantly flashed a Sharingan. The man was knocked off unconscious, and this allowed Deku to explore the memories. And this is when he'd been finding out exactly what's been going on. Now you see, this man right here was actually sent out by the League of Villains to look for a certain material. And this made Deku wonder what exactly was going on here. Now, as he was searched through more and more of his memories, he'll find that the guy was practically useless, other than that small bit of information, although he did end up giving out the location of where the villains were. So with that, Deku ends up telling this to Edshot, to which they begin to plan out what exactly their next move is. However, as they were about to plan out their next move, this is when suddenly another person would then walk into the alleyway. This person is not important at all, he's just some unknown villain, pretty much a grudge worker, pretty much. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My throat went completely dry in that very instant. I legit had to clear my throat for a little bit. But either way, the man would walk up to the two, instantly causing Deku and Edshot to stare down at him, as they were still pretty tense after all. Now the man comes up, showing that he was completely unarmed, and even more surprising, he didn't have a quirk. As this is when he then starts to explain that Shigaraki, or how he says it, Lord Shigaraki, had asked for the presence of the two of them. Now, as Deku and Aisha would hear this, they would think that this guy was pretty dumb. I mean, inviting two heroes over there, I mean, that's just going to let them capture you. But another thing is, was he really that dumb to think that they were going to fall for an obvious trap? If he wanted these two specifically, then, I mean, honestly, it was just like a pretty dumb idea. Until this is when the man wouldn't take a darker turn. As this is when he says that all around in different locations of Japan, there were already a multiple amount of villains gather up in very large amount of buildings, pretty much an area with a large amount of people. And these villains were ready to go off at any instance. Like, these guys were legit, like, psychotic. And he tells them that if they do not arrive there in that certain location in that certain amount of time, then those villains will finally be able to be let loose, and they'll finally be able to wreak carnage around the entire area. With that final threat, the man begins to laugh as he begins to walk away, with Deku and Edshot just letting him because of the fact that, I mean, what is he going to do? Huh? Like, what is he going to do? I honestly don't know. Either way, as Deku and Edshot would hear this, you'll look at each other for a second. Now, Deku would think of a plan for a while until suddenly this is when he then brings out the shadow clones. Edshot, already seen this technique after a while, had gotten used to it, although he still wasn't 100% sure how Deku was able to do it, with Deku just giving him a very bullshit response, or at least in his eyes, it was very bullshitty. As this is when Deku would tell the clones to go to certain locations, as he tells them to scent around for any suspicious activity or really anything that can help him stop anything that was about to happen. As for the time limit, well, Deku was 100% sure that these guys were willing to go with it, especially since that guy was psychotic enough to approach them. So, understanding the situation and trying to go for the best move, Edshot and Deku will decide to fall for their trap. So with that, we now change scenes. Sooner or later, they'll arrive at this ginormous, like, abandoned warehouse. It was ginormous, and it was actually very far off from, well, just the area that they were in. At this, Edshot and Deku would look at each other, already knowing that whatever's going to go on was that... Oh my gosh, I keep talking way too fast. Whatever was going to go on in there was definitely something that they're going to have to take care of eventually. So with that, they'll look at each other before nodding. Edshot had already sent in information to, the police and everything, also calling off other heroes, telling them to arrive at this location as well, as this is when they will then enter. As soon as they enter into the area, instantly they'll see it. The ginormous swarm of villains. There were so many of them that Edshot couldn't even count, with Deku being able to analyze all of them with his Sharingan and remembering every single one of their faces, before finally stumbling upon Shigaraki. Shigaraki himself would be laughing. I have waited for this moment in such a long time. You have no idea the amount of time spent on trying to get you here. The amount of time and resources, the amount of sacrifices I made just for you to be at this one place right here with me, Shigaraki would say. As he gets up, he'll begin to scratch himself all around, with Deku already noticing his transformation. Shigaraki looked way more buff compared to how he was before. As before, he was quite frail and skinny, and the most thing that was even noticeable about him was his quirk, as well as the regeneration quirk. But this guy looked way different. In fact, there was a new air of confidence in front of him, which made Deku actually wonder if these guys actually had a plan to stop him. Now, Deku was not a fool, alright? After the few occurrences with Shigaraki, he already knew that the man was deeply obsessed with him. So Deku wondered what exactly this man planned to do. Now, this Shigaraki would smile at Deku as he then tells him that this was it. This was going to be the final moment between the two of them. He tells Deku that once he's gone, they can finally build in a new path, a new era for villains. And that this will be the end for any hope that people have. The end for any symbol of peace that may sprung out to the world. As in Shigaraki's own twisted mental, facility that he has inside his mind, he pretty much thinks that Deku is this symbol of peace to everyone, or at least in his eyes, the true symbol of peace. All Might was the image. All Might was this brand or this title where pretty much can look at and be like, oh yeah, that guy's definitely going to protect us. But in the shadows, the one who's always looking after the people, in Shigaraki's mind, was Deku, which, I'm not going to lie to you, technically it is true. Now, Shigaraki would laugh for one last time. He would then go deeply quiet. Go, he would say. At this, instantly, Deku would then feel his senses begin to go haywire, as bursting from above, a ginormous fist was sent out and crashing into the very top of the abandoned factory. At this, Deku would look up to see Gigantomachia as he had arrived based on the orders of his new leader, this being Shigaraki. Now, Deku, of course, seeing this would instantly, move out the way, with Edgeshot doing the same thing, as Gigantomachia was actually kept hidden by, well, none other than an illusion quirk, which pretty much made illusions. Now, although Deku was able to sense this, he didn't really think much of it at the time. And also at the time, he thought that if anything was under there, he could deal with it. And now seeing this, Deku had to admit this guy was, well, he wouldn't say extremely powerful. He definitely was something, alright? Now, Gigantomachia will be there as he begins to tour about the entire factory, as this ginormous eruption actually caused many heroes that were currently like walking around, just surveying and like monitoring to make sure everyone is safe, would actually notice it as they look at the area wondering what's going on. Now, this will cause the heroes to go to the location, but at the meantime, we will now turn our attention back to Deku and Edgeshot. Seeing the ginormous villain attacking the two heroes, this will give the villains the cue to now attack as they go on a rampage. They'll rush at Deku and Headshot, hoping to get a slice in or anything. Like, these guys were really deprived of evil actions, so they wanted to take everything they can and throw it at Deku and Headshot. Now, Deku and Headshot would actually be handling this one really well, as while the entire time the villains have been preparing, Deku and Headshot had been training. Deku and Headshot will be taking care of multiple swarms of villains, with Deku using fireball jutsus as well as flaming arrows, and Headshot, well, he'll just be spreading himself thin, as currently he'll be moving at such fast speeds that the villains could not keep up. And while doing so, Headshot had actually gotten a little bit of an awakening, or a quirk awakening pretty much. Now, I'm gonna say this, his quirk awakening is, if you watch One Piece, similar to Don Flamingo. Now, he can't exactly, like, well, I don't want to reveal most of his abilities if you have not watched One Piece. But to put it pretty simple, this man is able to sharpen up his string pretty much, and he's able to cut people with it, alright? That's what I mean. So due to this, he was able to actually end up cutting up multiple amount of villains, knocking them out, or straight up just killing them right there and there, because, well, they're going to go for the kill, and, they're going to have to use equal force in response. But still, as Headshot was holding his own, as well as Deku, Gigantomachia would then throw another punch at Deku's direction. Now, at Deku seeing this, he would instantly end up, summoning a Shadow Clone as he dodges out the way. And all the while, the Shadow Clone, who also was summoned, would also dodge out of the way. It will begin to take on more of the swarm. And with this, Deku begins to summon out more clones, and this is when the villains just realize who they're facing up against. So many Dekus were running around, taking down the villains, and they had no idea what exactly this kid's ability was. To a point where Shigaraki was watching everything, was just watching it all with a surprisingly calm expression. No matter how many of other use that you form, I can see you perfectly right there. There's nothing hiding you in front of my eyes, he would say, as he stares down at the actual real Deku. Now, you see, the reason for this one is because of the fact that Shigaraki, now, I don't know if you would really call this a really good ability, pretty much, but Shigaraki has gained a generous amount of quirks, and while doing that, he also kind of gained this inept sense when Deku was nearby. Now, I wouldn't really say it was a healthy one, as he was able to tell the difference between a clone and an actual Deku, but it wasn't really a quirk ability. It was more due to his own, like, trauma with it. It's weird to explain pretty much, but what I can say to the best of my ability is that Shigaraki can tell what is a real Deku and what is a fake Deku pretty much. As he looked at the real Deku, this is when he would then pull it out. The one thing that could put an end to all of this, or at least in his eyes, that's what he thought. You see, throughout so much time of watching Deku and his infinite abilities, Shigaraki had more or less convinced himself that Deku had a quirk. And due to this, he had saved up so much, and with the help of the doctor, he was actually able to form a very new ultra powerful quirk bullet. So pretty much the same thing that overall used to erase like Mirio's quirk in canon. Now you see, this one will be way more powerful than the ones he made, since this one is meant as an instant kill. Mostly because of the fact there's also poison involved into it, and pretty much it's meant to shut down someone entirely. A very powerful weapon for a very powerful individual. As Shigaraki would look at Deku, he would then point the gun directly at him, as Deku was too focused on fighting. Thank you for giving me such a wonderful experience. Now, die, he would say, as he shoots off the bullet, and the bullet pierces through the air at surprising speeds, as Deku would be too focused on the fighting, as this is when he would then be stabbed by the bullet as it goes right through his arm. Now, at this, Shigaraki would look at his smile, as Deku himself would actually be surprised as this is when he then feels it. The effects of it actually begin to hit Deku, and Shigaraki, seeing that Deku was actually stopping for a second, think that it worked. Yes, 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 he would say as he begins to laugh as Gigento Machia would then throw a fist at Deku, trying to end him. As for Deku himself, he would be there, just frozen, until suddenly this is when a green aura would then unleash from him. I had enough of this, Deku would say. Now at this, as Gigento Machia's fist was approaching Deku, this is when suddenly a metal gauntlet or a metal arm would then form, catching his fist with ease, as this is when an entire structure begins to form. At this, Shigaraki would look on in surprise. How? This shouldn't be possible. That should have been enough to end you. That should have been enough to cancel any abilities, any powers that you have. What is going on here? He shouted, as he thought that Deku was cheating in this imaginary game that he created. As for Deku himself, he had to admit, that was not a pleasant experience, alright? And to put it in simple terms, Deku did not like it at all, and he's not gonna lie to you, that poison did have a very powerful effect. Mostly due to the fact that Deku does have a semi-resistance to poison. He was able to resist it for a short time before it actually began to have an actual effect on him. Like, this man was actually feeling it. So due to that and thinking quickly, Deku had to use up all his knowledge as well as very precise chakra control to, in that very instance, that he actually burned the poison out of his body. Which was much harder than you would actually think. Because think about it, he has to be frozen in the middle of a battlefield, about to be attacked, all the while burning off a poison. That takes a lot of skill. But Deku, thanks to all his training since the beginning of him being into this world, and thanks to how much he trained with chakra at such a young age, Deku's control over it was just enough to actually burn the poison out of his system. Not entirely though, as he was still in the midst of doing it as he formed the Susanoo, but still enough to the point where he's able to fight. As Deku would smile as the entire Susanoo would form, with everyone looking at this and just realize that they're not cut out for this. As standing in front of them was legit a ginormous Susanoo. If you guys want an example, well, just search up Shishui's Awakening and Ninja Storm, alright? So, with his Susanoo not completely formed, Deku would look around as this is when he would then use the Susanoo and actually form the ginormous drill. And as he does, the villains then realize, holy crap, we're all about to get killed at this very instant. As they all begin to turn and try to run away, Deku would then release the swarm of needles, which falls upon them, slaughtering a lot of them as they were unable to get away. It was pointless. All the while Shigaraki, not believing this, had finally had enough. I had enough of this, he would shout as he rushes over at Deku to the ginormous construct, as this is when he then slams his palm, trying to, well, use it to decay and everything. This will cause a generous amount of eruption throughout the entire area, even sending the Gigento Machia back, as Deku himself would actually have to be impressed as the Susanoo was actually a little bit damaged in that very instance. So he got stronger, I see. At this, Shigaraki would then smile as this is when he then forms wings on his back as he flies up into the air, staring directly at Deku as he was inside the Susanoo armor. You think this is gonna stop me from ending you? After all the pain and suffering you caused? Shigaraki would say as he shoots out attack after attack, trying to end Deku's very life, with Deku himself just being there taking all of it. The Susanoo was extremely durable, and even with all the hacks and updates that Shigaraki got, it was pointless as he still did not stand a chance at the power of Deku. And as Shigaraki would throw out attack and after attack, this is when Deku would then feel someone approach from behind him, as Gigento Machia would then grab onto the Susanoo construct as he then holds it back. Now with this, Shigaraki would actually see, well, what he would think is an opening, as Deku was currently right now staring at him, as this is when he then slams his palm onto the aura, trying to eradicate it, causing more and more destruction. So with this, if you want to think about it, Deku is currently right now being treated as Thanos at this very moment, with almost every villain that was currently still alive at the moment trying to either get away from him or fight off against him, or straight up just trying to do everything in their power not to just get ended by this guy. In seeing all this, Deku decided to end this once and for all, as Edgeshaw himself had already been pretty tired after the whole event, and seeing the fact that Deku was in trouble, he wanted to help out, but he couldn't really do anything. So with this, Deku then closes his eyes for a second, as this is when the Susanoo construct would then finally end up getting, well, deactivated. With this, Deku is just calmly free falling from the sky, as this would cause Shigaraki as well as Gantomakia to try to attack him one last time. But unfortunately for them, this was the end. As Deku would open his eyes, this is when he would then say the words, "Infinite Kotomatu Kami." Deku would say, as this one suddenly he would then release a ginormous streak of chakra that would affect not only Shigaraki and Gantomakia, but all the villains that were currently still there and just watching the display, as they'll all be absorbed into this nightmarish world. Now you see, as soon as they opened their eyes, they would then see that Deku was no longer in front of them, and instead, Deku was sitting down on his throne. Now, of course, the villains would be confused at this until Shigaraki would then rush over, not giving a damn as he tries to attack Deku, until Deku says the simple words, "Kneel." At this, Shigaraki would then actually collapse as he would be kneeling down at Deku as he tries to force his body to move, but it was not responding to him. You've been unaware about your limits this entire time, thinking that you had it all and thinking you can do anything. But I believe it's about to knock you down to reality. With this, Deku would then suddenly end up snapping his fingers as above them, a sun would then appear, a bloody red sun, as the Sharingan symbol would then appear on top of it. At this, seeing the display, the villains begin to quake in fear, with Shigaraki himself actually beginning to feel fear once again. The trauma that he experienced was coming back at him full power this time, as he be shouting that he doesn't want to go out like this, that this wasn't how it's supposed to go, with Deku looking at him, telling him that this is the reality and that he has to accept it. And that maybe if he didn't so much reject his own reality, then things could have been different. As Shigaraki would be staring at Deku in shock, this is when Deku would then walk away, with Shigaraki wondering if this was a power of a god. As with a simple snap of his fingers, the ginormous Sharingan eye would then begin to emit a powerful blast that would disintegrate Shigaraki, Gigantomakia, and every single one of the villains that were currently right there, as he had to do nothing more but sit there and endure the anguish. But if you think that was only one of it, no, you're wrong. As they had to experience it multiple times, it was an endless loop, as Deku himself began to walk out of there. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an explanation here, as I'm not going to lie to you, Shigaraki is not coming back from this one. And here's actually a reason why. Now, you see, I'm actually making it to where, as I told you early on in the story, Deku's Genjutsu skills had exceeded to an abnormal amount of levels, to the point where he's no longer just simply attacking your mind, as that can no longer be the case. Thanks to how powerful he has gotten, as well as the growth in his chakra, as well as in his abilities, I guess you could say Deku at this point, and in this timeline, he has something akin to reality warping. Not to like a ginormous extent where he's able to like, oh, infinite Tsukuyomi the entire like verse or anything, but to the point where he's like, hey, I like, you see this small area I have, this small little area, you in there, I can end you. So yeah, that's what I'm pretty much trying to say here. Many of you guys might not like that. In fact, I can pretty much tell that some power scalers and everything, or some people who are really deep fans are saying like, that's not possible. With me, I'm just gonna say I personally do not care. All right, that's just gonna how I'm gonna make my story go. Okay, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. I like it how it is, and moving on. So walking out of there, Deku would then arrive back to back to this world, and as he does, he will see Edgeshot looking in shock about everything as he approaches Deku, wondering what happened. With Deku himself looking up into the sky and telling him that he's taking care of it for now, at least. Now, Edgeshot has no idea what happened, as he tries to tell Deku to open up, but this is when the rest of the heroes would then soon arrive, to begin to question about what exactly happened here, what went down, with Deku and Edgeshot having to explain everything, as we now change scenes. So currently, right now, rotting in his cell, we will see All For One as he was laughing maniacally, as he thinks that his plan has undergone he's right now in the midst of his plan right now. That's what he's thinking. He's thinking that he would finally be able to achieve everything he wanted. But unfortunately for him, I have other plans. That's right, I have other plans. As this is when All Might would then walk in, as he was currently wearing his hero attire, and he had a subtle grin on his face as he was walking with the folder. Oh, you decided to visit me again. Wonder what's the occasion, huh? Decided to curse on me a little bit more? He would say as he looks at All Might. All Might himself will be looking at All For One with a grin, although deep down he was pretty sad. After hearing the report about what happened and exactly what Deku did to Shigaraki, he felt sad that the boy had to he was ended like that. But at the same time, I mean, with how deep he was and just how crazy things were, it was gonna take much more than a simple "you can still change" and everything. Like, he's not gonna get Talk no Jutsu, dude. This man was far gone. So with that, as he does feel a little bit of remorse, he decided to just turn it to All For One, considering the fact that he will feel very satisfaction knowing that his great plan had completely come to an end by a child. He'll tell All For One about what went down, the events that transpired, about what exactly Deku did, and he will go into detail about it, as he makes sure to get all the details for this report, while All For One will be there as he will lose that smile. He will pale more and more as he begins to actually get informed about the information. At this, he found out that his facilities that he worked so hard on creating had been discovered. The doctor was captured, and he was currently right now, like, that man was not going to get out of prison for a very long time. And after explaining everything, All For One just couldn't believe it all. That bastard, he would see, as he begins to struggle out of his straitjacket, as he wanted nothing more to rush out, attack Deku, and attack All Might. He just wanted to do everything in his power to get revenge, but unfortunately for him, it was out of his reach. As with this, the last thing we would see as the cameras were about to cut would be All Might, as he then turns into his buff form as he stares directly at All For One, as he tells All For One that he must accept it. This is his lost. And with that being said, we will now move forward to the future. Throughout this entire time, life has gone pretty good. Crime rates have gone down a lot, of course. Now, there's still villains here and there, still those who wanted to oppose the law and everything, but they'll be taken down indefinitely. Another thing, though, was the fact that the Hero Society had actually taken a very drastic change. Mostly due to the fact that, thanks to the fact of someone else, this being Deku, and thanks to his involvement in pretty much most of the big events, he made a ginormous change to the system. Considering the fact that Deku realized that there was so much good and bad in both villains and heroes, and he realized that it was up to someone to take care of it all. So with this, Deku actually devised a new system entirely. He would share this with the entire UA and all the heroes and everything, before finally end up putting it up with the board, to which, although they at first were not very good about the idea, after seeing how much good Deku was showing as well as all the amazing stuff he's done, they decided that there's really nothing else they can do. And also another thing, Deku is technically the strongest in the verse. I mean, what can anyone do? Mirio, stop. One glance, he's going night-night. So, yeah, they couldn't really do anything to refute him. So, with that, Deku would make his own brand of systems. Now, these guys were mostly meant to target the injustice, pretty much. The people who are either good, but are looked at as evil, and also fixing those who are looked at as good, but are secretly evil instead. They'll be the ones to take care of that situation, as these people will be known as the Ambu. And the one who is leading them all will be none other than our very own protagonist, Deku. As the last scene we will end up seeing would be Deku right now as he was enjoying some tea, and at that same time he'll be looking fondly at all the memories that transpired before looking up into the sky. He'll have a smile on his face as all he can do right now is enjoy the life that he currently have and be grateful for it, and at the same time he hopes that somewhere out there his friend, also his brother, would also be enjoying it. As if you guys don't know who I'm talking about Itachi. As with that final smile on his face, Deku will then be called in by his mother, as she begins to explain some things to him, as we will see Deku then begin to talk to her, as this is where we then fade to black. Now, this will be the end to What If Deku was Shisui's reincarnation. I hope that you guys enjoy the story. I'm very sorry if you guys did not like the ending, but I liked it, and we're moving on, alright? There's so many new what ifs out there. There's so many more stories that I want to do, and this what if has to end in order for those stories to come to fruition. And I'm not going to lie to you, this story's ending had been outdated for such a long time, so I'm glad I was actually able to bring it. Now, guys, don't worry. Alright, the others what ifs will also be ending soon as well. And I wanted to start off with this one, considering the fact that it was much more easier than the other two. Yeah. But definitely, I really did like the story, how it went. Honestly, I couldn't really see myself doing much better for the ending. Honestly, it was more for the other parts of the story that I wanted to fix up a little bit. But other than that, I feel like I did a pretty good job. Definitely, this is one of my favorite stories. I enjoy it for what it was, and hopefully I can make more that are, well, actually better than this one, as I always want to improve on what I do usually. Okay, now I'm just rambling because of the fact that I don't really have a good outro for this one. So, with this being said, guys, it's your host, Seiji Samurai, and he's signing off. Please have a lovely day. Enjoy y'all time. And don't worry, your boy will be making a comeback soon. Don't worry about it. He'll be bringing some new crispy what ifs, and enjoy yourselves, you know? So, with that being said, it's your host, and see you next time. Peace.